Get ready to be inspired by the Unstoppable Marines podcast. Meet Marines Garcia-Lambert, a true force of resilience with a story that defies the odds. Join her as she dives deep into conversations with experts and trailblazers in health, mental health, and personal growth. Discover stories of triumph, tools for transformation, and motivation to unleash your own unstoppable spirit. Subscribe now and never miss an episode of Unstoppable Marines, the podcast that proves no challenge is too great. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the show, Unstoppable Marines. Tonight, we're going to have a guest, and we're going to be talking about having healthier relationships, especially with couples. His professional background is a psychotherapist, and he will educate us tonight about what does it take for us to have a healthier relationship. His name is Paul Garcia-Lambert. Welcome, Paul.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
I am wonderful.
I am excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So tell the audience a little bit about you and how did you came up across being a psychotherapist?
I actually was trained as an engineer, an electrical engineer, and I have been practicing electrical engineering and software engineering most of my life. I got into psychotherapy as a result of a distressing event that happened in my life, which it was the divorce from my first wife. When that happened, I did not take it well. And I found myself suffering from suicidal thoughts and ideation. And I said, this is not good. And I went to seek help, and I found a therapist nearby, and I got myself into counseling as a client. It turned out to be a life-changing event for me. And it was so impactful that I said, this is what I really want to do with my life. My father really chose engineering for me because I was really not that motivated. I was smart enough to get through the program and to get a job and be successful at it, but my heart wasn't in it. When I experienced therapy as a client and saw the impact that it had on my life, it blew me away. It was wonderful. So I decided that I would go back to school, and I was 48 at the time, to get a master's degree in mental health counseling. I did that and have been practicing since around 2012, and continuing to grow and becoming a better therapist. And it is everything that I hoped it would be. And I love what I do, and I love being able to help people and watch them experience the changes that I experienced in their lives.
That is awesome. And especially because you love what you do. And there's nothing better than that, right? Doing what we love to do.
I do love what I do.
Yes. So tell us a little bit more. How did you start building a relationship and trust with a client who's hesitant or maybe not hesitant, but is the first time you guys are entering into a relationship?
What I try to do initially with my clients, if they are not experienced clients, is to educate them as to how I work and what I'm trying to help them understand. I give them education about how human beings behave, how their subconscious works on their behalf, and how emotion plays a central role in how people behave. So rather than have them see themselves coming in with problems, I try to help them understand that their whole self, their subconscious, is working to protect them. So their behavior, though they may not like it, actually has a useful purpose. So once people start to understand that they're really not as broken as they think they are, they can approach therapy with a greater ease.
Yes. And I think that's very important because a lot of people think about therapy such as I'm crazy or I'm not crazy, but it's not nothing like it, right?
That's not the focus. The focus isn't I'm going to fix you. The focus is I want to help you understand why you're behaving or feeling or thinking the way you're doing currently, and understand why it's working for you in a certain way and not working for you in another way. But it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you don't understand yourself. That's what it means.
Or people may say, I don't want to talk to a stranger about my problems.
Well, that, you know, we won't be strangers after a little while,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I'm not coming from the place of I want to judge you and find out what's wrong with you. I'm coming as a guide and an educator
Yes.
rather than
And I think that's very important information for the audience to know, right? When you engage in this type of setting, you building a relationship,
exact
you building trust.
exactly exactly. So it is very hard to trust someone when you are under the assumption that they're going to criticize you or find fault with you. If that's the case, then of course you're not going to trust them. But if they're not going to find fault with you and they're going to be on your side and help you, it's far easier to learn to trust someone.
Hmm. Another important topic to talk about is um, how do you feel that mental health is connected to the physical health? And how is that important as well, as a whole?
People people see themselves and their behaviors in boxes. They think that their physical health is somehow separate from their mental health. And they think their emotions are different than their thoughts and different than their spirit. It's all one system. You can't be healthy only in one part. You're going to be as healthy as the sum of the whole. So you want to take care of all of you, not just your body or just your emotions and your thoughts. If you want to be whole, you want to keep, you want the whole system to be healthy.
Mm.
So it's all integrated.
Um, and that's actually what people need to understand that is all connected. One is not better than the other. They both equally as important.
Exactly. And if you don't have sufficient mental health, your body may be healthy, but you're not going to be able to enjoy life. So what's the point of just keeping one part of you healthy? Why don't you want to keep the whole thing healthy?
Hmm. Yes. So I would encourage anybody that is dealing with mental health or physical health, please look for help. You may be haven't done a physical in a while, maybe you don't have a doctor, but also um, finding a psychotherapist right nearby that is willing to help you, and you will be open to build that relationship, because it's important to have trust. It's important to feel that there's a connection between the client and the therapist.
There has to be a trust built between the two if that relationship is going to work.
Yes. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
It won't work.
Yes. Um, so don't be afraid if you experience that you are dealing with a therapist and there's not really a connection there. Be open.
Also, if you happen to have a therapist and you don't trust your therapist, that's a signal that you may not be working with the right therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be
Yes.
afraid to say, you know what, this relationship isn't working. Not every client that walks through my door finds uh, finds a trusting relationship with me for whatever reason. So and I don't see that as a problem. So if a client sees me 3 or 4 times and says this isn't working, I'm like, wonderful. I don't want you to waste time if it's not going to work for you. So, find the therapist that you feel right with.
Paul, also, can you tell us a little bit more about what are the some common mental health and challenges that people are facing today, and how they have evolved over time, in your opinion?
It feels to me like we as a society are starting to appreciate mental health as part of overall health and not seeing simply physical health and wealth as being a measure of how well somebody is doing or whether or not they're successful in their job. Being happy is very important. If a person isn't happy, you know, you can have all the money in the world. But if you're not going to be able to enjoy it, what's the point?
Yes. And I believe that is one of many signs that someone can recognize this is time for me to seek help.
Right. If you find that everything seems to be going the way you think it's supposed to go, and yet you're not happy, there's an indication that you need some additional help. And there's no shame in saying, you know what? I don't know how to be happy with what I've got. I mean, I've got, a house, 2.5 kids, whatever the norm is, and I find myself unhappy. Well, you know what that means? That means that something's not right and you need help. And it's not about stuff and status.
Mm-hmm. And so, can you explain the difference between therapy and counseling, or individual and group therapy?
The, a therapist is going to serve you best if they help you understand yourself and understand how you feel about yourself and understand your relationship to emotion. Rather than telling you what to do, they help you understand how you feel and help you change and heal your relationship to your feelings. That's what a great therapist is going to do. Counseling is tell me what to do in this situation. I need advice. Okay, well, I will counsel you in this situation. But counseling is not going to change your fundamental understanding of yourself and heal wounds that we have been carrying with us. So, the therapy that I perform is a trauma based therapy. So, I'm not interested in helping people simply develop coping mechanisms. I want to help people heal the wounds that they're trying to run from. So that, and counseling doesn't really do that. So, I'm not interested in being a counselor. I want to be a therapist.
Well, and I think that's important for us to heal in order to make progress.
Yes, I don't want to just continue running from the things that are hurting me. I want to heal these wounds.
Yes. And most of the time, we just don't know what to do.
Right.
We just don't know how to.
Exactly. That's why you want a third party that isn't invested in how you feel. A good therapist isn't going to try to change how you feel. A good therapist is going to help you understand why you feel the way you do and
Mhm.
help you change your relationship to how you feel and gain control over how you feel
And not see it as a problem,
and not see it as a problem.
but see it as
So,
your body is protecting yourself.
or it's simply talking to you.
Yeah.
I feel whatever. So feelings aren't good or bad. They just are. Some are comfortable and some are uncomfortable. But the ones that are uncomfortable aren't bad. They're just uncomfortable.
Hmm. And I heard that in order to be growth, sometimes it hurts.
It does.
Growing,
You know what? Growing always hurts.
but it has a great outcome at the end.
Well, yes, because then you get stronger and you get to experience a greater range of feelings that are that help you enjoy life. So we're not trying to run from feeling. We're trying to be able to support feeling.
Hmm. And to have a better relationship with yourself, but also with others. But it starts first with us.
That's right. If I can't stand how I feel, I'm going to have a hard time when I'm sitting with somebody and those feelings show up. I'm going to want to run
Hmm.
or I'm going to want to engage in some behavior to make those feelings go away. But if I'm doing that, I'm defending myself and I don't have an open heart. And
Yes.
it's hard to connect.
And some of those behaviors could be very destructive.
Yes, they can.
And not only in using chemicals and things, it could be destructing in itself.
Yes, yes.
So it's very important for us to find that one person that is going to help us feel better and have a better relationship with us and for us to give the better of us to others and be happy at at the end of the day, right?
At the end of the day,
You just want to be happy.
I want to be happy.
Even if you are alone, you're still gonna say, I am a happy camper.
Yes. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to sit in a chair with nothing to do and feel good?
Yes. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Also, I have other questions for you. Um, how do you help clients break free from a negative thought, um, patterns or behaviors? Um, as you develop this relationship, is it a quick fix? Does it take time? Um, is it depending on the client? What is your perspective?
So every client is different, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
When a person is having an experience that they don't like, I help them understand that it always has to do with their upbringing, the environment that they grew up in, the bonding they have to whoever their primary caregivers were, and the beliefs that they have about themselves. It it frequently takes time for a person to truly appreciate that if I have a negative belief about myself, that it's not true. But the trick is, I believe it. And the reason I believe it is because it came across as a message to me as I was a kid. And my primary caregivers probably didn't know they were sending me this message because they probably believed it about themselves. And as a child, I grew up in an environment. I I bond I bond to my primary caregivers' beliefs, feelings, attitudes, their energy. Kids try to make themselves a mini version of their primary caregivers, and they don't even know they're doing it. And every kid does it. So I am going to bond to my parents' light and to their darkness. And I have to, me as a therapist, I want to help my clients understand that your parents or your primary caregivers are human too. And everyone has light and everyone has darkness. And in therapy, we're primarily focused on the darkness because that's why we're in therapy. I'm trying to unbelieve the lies that were subconsciously transferred to me as a kid. And I'm trying to heal the wounds that I suffered along the way. So I want to start to see my parents or primary caregivers as human beings rather than, as all children do, they see their parents as godlike figures.
Perfect. And no one is perfect.
And no one is perfect.
We all try to do our very best with what we have,
That's what everyone does.
right?
We can't do better than what we're doing. And if I as an outsider look at somebody's behavior, if I understand the environment they grew up in, how their parents treated them, how they feel about themselves, I would think that every behavior that I ever saw in anyone made 100% sense.
Yes. And how do you handle those cases where they are struggling to open up?
The most important part of being a therapist is to be accepting of your client and be present and non-judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be with the client and let them know, I'm listening to you. I hear what's going on. I understand how you feel. And I want to help you understand why you feel like you do. And there's no judgment or criticism. So when a client is presented with that level of acceptance, their spirit listens and hears. And then that person becomes that person, there's the place inside of that person that wants to be understood, hears that and responds. And it may take time, and it may not be on the conscious level. It may be subconscious, where I'm starting as a client to know, hey, this guy's really listening to me and he's not judging me. Okay. I'm going to start to trust. And it may take a long time. It can take years sometimes, depending on the level of abuse that a client has suffered in their life.
Yes. And also knowing that that client is going to do healing, even if it's slow, but it's eventually going to happen if they continue to trust you and developing the relationship uh, between you and the client, right? And I feel that that's where the meat of the relationship comes, building that trust.
Well, that trust is foundational. That trust uh, has to be fostered by the therapist, and the therapist has to have complete integrity and not abuse that trust ever, so that the client hears that this trust is consistent and it is unshakable, and then that will foster the relationship.
Um, what practical advice would you give your listeners tonight?
Oh, that's pretty broad. I don't know. I would say if you find that you are engaged in a behavior that you don't like and you want to change and you don't know how, that's an indication that you might need help. And I would invite you to consider getting some professional help.
Well, thank you so much. I think it is a lot of information you provided for us today. I think that um, people are gonna be probably thinking, "Hey, that's just me, right? That's me. He's talking to me, right?" So, where can they find you?
You can find me online at freespirit-llc.com. That's my website. You can find me on Psychology Today if you look in the Hartford, Connecticut area. Um, that's really the places where you'd want to look to find me.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. And also, what kind of advice would you give them to at least begin trying to find mental health until they make that call? What what would that be?
I would advise you to start looking without, suppose you don't have to pick up the phone. Suppose you could just start looking online or calling a local social service agency and pretend that you were actually going to, and what would you ask? What kind of questions would you like to read the profiles of some therapists and see what people say about how they practice and their view of who their clients are. Get yourself educated.
So like we were talking, right? Uh in a relationship when it comes to husband and wife, right? There's so many areas where we see that couples they start together, but little by little they start losing that connection and they're not longer a couple.
Right.
They become strangers,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um and I feel that bringing this into the air, trying to help other people have that connection. We are not looking for perfection, but better relationship, a better communication, better, better intimacy, right? And intimacy is not only going to sleep at night with that person; it goes way beyond intimacy, right? It's a connection
Yes. Yes.
in here
That's right.
that goes to here, then into action.
Yes. The foundation for real intimacy has got to be safety. If I feel that I can express myself to you and I'm going to be received with an open heart, then I will feel free expressing myself to you. If I don't feel that I am going to be received freely, then I am not going to express myself to you. And I'm going to either maintain a wall that I brought into my relationship, or I'm going to build a wall so that I can protect my heart. Safety is the number one emotional need, bar none. If I don't feel safe, all bets are off because I'm going to do whatever I need to do to feel safe. And it's my subconscious that is going to do this. Here's the trick. We bring in our expectation of what communication is by what we learned from our family of origin. If my parents don't communicate to each other well, no one showed me how. I didn't know how to do it because I learned about communication by watching my primary caregivers communicate.
Mm-hmm.
If I come from a single parent household and my single parent doesn't know how to communicate, who teaches me how to communicate?
Mm-hmm.
So what I really need to do is I need to become aware of my ability to communicate. I need to become aware of how do I feel if I'm going to reveal something very, very personal to somebody else? Am I willing to do that? If the answer is hell no, then I've got an issue. I'm not going to be able to communicate with my significant other.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to start with myself and understanding my own ability and uh, my own defense mechanisms that are preventing me from having an open heart.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't go there, I'm not going to learn how to communicate.
And what about, because usually the ladies are the one, we need counseling, we need therapy. Would that be helpful
How do you mean?
in therapy? Like if you are having issues with your husband or your wife,
Yeah,
and you feel that your ability to communicate is not there, will therapy help you?
absolutely. The trick is in every relationship, the troubles are 50-50.
Yes.
So it's half the man, half the woman, or half of each part.
Yes.
That's where the trouble is.
Yes.
No, it's never, you don't have one healthy person and one unhealthy person in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Yes.
You've
There's no perfection.
There's no perfection. So both parties are going to need to look in the mirror and say, how am I creating trouble in this relationship? How am I not opening my heart? How am I being judgmental or not accepting of my partner?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to look at that.
Yes. And I think the more we are willing to open up and be sincere with one another, um, the the root of the issue could be targeted in a healthy way
Right. So I want,
with the intention of having um, the relationship get stronger and
yes,
better.
yes. So suppose nobody's doing anything wrong. Suppose I am communicating the way I've been taught to communicate. And that may not be conducive to an open relationship. But rather than say, there's something wrong with me, I don't know how to communicate, simply say, I was not taught how to communicate. Okay, so now I have to learn. And as I start becoming more open, recognizing the resistance that is built into my system to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't feel comfortable talking about this or that. And that's where we have to go. We have to start understanding our resistance to being open and appreciating the resistance and not trying to push past it.
Mm.
So the goal isn't to be open right off the bat. The goal is to recognize the reason that I'm not open and accept that as me protecting my heart. And I need to.
It's a safety issue.
It's a safety issue. Again, it always comes back to safety.
Yes. And I see that goes a lot into the marriages where either one or the other they don't feel safe. Something happened along the life, right? That created that unsafety. So it's now um it's a building time when you are building a new relationship and you're like, I'm always failing. I never make it. I start well, but then I never make it, right? So communication is the key, but also healing those wounds about feeling unsafe, about not having that trust that could help you get the best relationship of your life. Not a perfect one, but the perfect one for you. but keeping in mind that we are all imperfect, but we could still make it perfect for us.
Right. And we have to remember it comes back to, I am going to communicate the way that I've been trained from my family of origin. And if my family of origin didn't communicate in a perfectly healthy way, then I don't know how to communicate in a perfectly healthy way. And I may need help to learn how to do it.
Yes. And if you stay tuned, probably on the next chapter, we could give suggestions in how to communicate better to break the relationship that you had from your parents or whoever raised you, right? That wasn't that healthy. Um, and if you are looking forward to have a better relationship with that loved one, um, we will do our best to help you guys um, to start healing in that path.
Subscribe now and never miss an episode of Unstoppable Marines, the podcast that proves no challenge is too great. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.